In this episode of Supply Chain Now Radio, Beau Groover, president of the Effective Syndicate, discusses corporate cultures. They're either evolving or devolving, Lean Six Sigma as a growth strategy, and why having an open-door policy is passé.
Okay, up next on Supply Chain Now Radio, we have Mr. Acuna, Beau Groover. Sorry, I'm still thinking Braves are still number one, so I'm thinking Braves lineup. But you are founder and president of the Effective Syndicate, and you can play left field for the Braves. You're in good shape.
I don't have the same wheels I used to. No pun intended.
No pun intended. That's right. Well, good morning, Beau. Thanks for joining us, as always. Let's better understand first what you do, right? The Effective Syndicate's been around for several years. I know that you've been around for more than several years, bringing 20 years of manufacturing and operations and distribution experience to the table. But tell us about the Effective Syndicate and how you help companies. Really, how do you help companies become more successful and tackle growth like Lund has?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to work with Lund yet, but it's a compelling story. And we approach business in a holistic way. So our principle is if you take great people and put them in amazing processes, the only results you should expect are amazing results or great results. And so we focus on the people side, which is the leadership development, building trust, communication, teamwork. And then the continuous improvement side is obviously the Lean Six Sigma focus. And I'm also very blessed. I've got a partner who is well-versed in Lean and IT. So one of the gaps that I continue to see is companies working around their IT system rather than building their IT system to match their processes.
So thank you for correcting me, too. What I meant to say there is companies are looking at Lund and they say, I want to be like Lund when we grow, get older and get bigger. So clearly your work on people and process can help make that happen for them. So you've got no shortage. You fly the highways and byways. You were in Chicago last week eating New York pizza, right?
Did not have New York pizza in Chicago.
Just kidding to our audience.
Chicago hot dogs.
That's right, Chicago hot dogs. You're in the offices, you're on the floor, you're on the production floor of a wide variety of manufacturing and really a wide variety of operations. What are some of your key observations that you're seeing, whether it's, on the positive side that's fueling growth or unfortunately on, some of the dynamics that are holding companies back?
Sure. So on the positive side, I think one of the things that I'm pleased to see is there's a large conversation going on around culture. If you look at LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, there's a movement to recognize that humans need more than a paycheck from their job. So I think that there's a movement that's happening in front of us. I think the downside of that is there's still too many companies that allow their culture just to evolve or devolve to the point where it's unhealthy, measured by employee surveys and high turnover margins and just all of these indicators. And usually what that ends up with is a company that is good, but it's going to be always good unless and until somebody says, look, we need to work on our culture, which requires focus and intention.
Now, even if you're not working on your culture, your company still has a culture, right? Whether you're working on it or not, right?
Whether it's a good one or a bad one, right? There is one. Absolutely.
So you can take some steps to be proactive and then kind of shape the culture if you're so inclined.
Absolutely. And I think that's the miss is companies see culture as this squishy thing that's hard to get their hands around. And it is hard to articulate what is a culture, but it's not hard to articulate the behaviors. And the behaviors lead to the results that you're seeing. So a lot of companies say, we're just not getting the results that we want, but they're not working on the inputs to that. Let's talk about our performance. Well, there's things that lead to your performance, good and bad.
And then what are some low-hanging fruit for our listeners that can help them kind of create a healthier culture in their organization?
Communication and trust. And so earlier when we were talking about Lund, one of the things that came up was culture. And through the acquisition, my guess is Lund recognizes that you have a strong culture. And when you acquire someone, your culture will bring them in appropriately.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
So for me, culture comes before process. If you get the people side of your business right and turn them loose and engage in them and empower them, they will figure out how to do anything that you can put in front of them.
But there's a balance between the autonomy to do what you need to do and then also the strategic focus to do it, in the direction that the company would like to grow.
Absolutely. I think leaders' responsibility is to articulate what needs to be done and why it's important, and then engage and empower the people who are doing the work to go get it done.
we could dedicate a week's worth of shows to culture. I think it's something we all are passionate about. I want to switch gears a minute, and again, no pun intended. Lots of automotive puns today.
It's everywhere.
It is everywhere. So, I usually tell this to folks whenever I introduce Beau to them, because we've been friends and colleagues for a long time. But Beau did my first lean workshop in 2006 at the Dave & Buster's training room in Norcross, Georgia, and really introduced a lot of new thoughts to me, and did so in a very in the Beau Groover manner, which really it's always struck a note with me. So talking about lean, or maybe in a broader sense, talking about continuous improvement, we were talking pre-show about companies that get it right and companies that don't, companies that use it in a tactical manner versus those that use it more strategically. What have you been seeing?
Yeah, so unfortunately, lean has a lot of definitions out there. And a lot of companies use lean as just a tactical weapon. So they go to the shop floor, they go to the operation, they go to the warehouse and say, we need to take cost out. And that's where it stops. The sad part of that is I believe lean should be part of the strategy. So in business, you're either growing or you're dying. There's no holding steady. You're either growing or dying. So it's binary. And the companies that get it right, they say, we want to grow, which becomes the goal, which then leads to the question of how, which becomes the strategy. And lean, by its very definition, is about removing waste. So when you remove waste, you free up money, you free up resources, you free up people, and that allows you to go focus on growth, whether that's through an acquisition or through expanding product lines or new markets or whatever those things are. And so when you stop on the shop floor, you will definitely get some gains and some improvements, but you miss all of the time wasted in the office and in the front end. And most of the time, those people are paid more. They're skilled. They're probably educated in a lot of cases. So you've got this giant talent pool of people in your office that are underutilized or working in terrible processes, doing wasteful things when it's just there for the taking if you just apply the principles.
So how important is it, you're talking on the shop floor, going to it again, but how important is it for leaders to get out there and know what's going on? Let's talk. You know where I'm going with this, right?
I do. One of my favorite quotes is, your open door policy is lame. So if you're a leader in the organization and you're waiting for your people to come talk to you about a problem they've got, that is a poor example of leadership. Go out there and look, go out there and talk to them, go out there and see what's happening and lead them from the front. Don't make them come to you.
Actually, I think the Beau Groover t-shirt that I saw was open door leadership is for weenies, if I'm not mistaken. So get out there and lead.
I don't have that shirt.
Yeah. All right. So shifting gears over to inventory, certainly in this age of e-commerce and managing inventory, if it ever could get more important, it's really important these days. So what are you seeing from an inventory perspective, some of the companies that you're on the floor with and in their warehouses and in their operations?
Yeah. So it's still the buy or make and hope strategy. So I'm going to look at a forecast that says I'm going to sell 1,000 widgets. I'm going to buy 1,000 widgets and hope that I can sell them. And you look at every other corner on the street and you see a Dollar General, right? And a lot of that material is just overstock, where we purchased it poorly or we manufactured it poorly or both. And the organizations have warehouses full of this stuff. Well, it looks pretty harmless when you look at it, but you've got the space, you're heating it and cooling it, you're paying taxes on it, you're moving it, you're cycle counting it, you're getting it lost, you're getting it damaged, and it is still very burdensome for those organizations who have that make and hope strategy for their supply chain instead of building closer to a true demand.
And you've got the secret formula for 100% accurate forecasting, right?
I do not. We called forecasting the F word.
There you go. Yeah, I've heard that once, twice.
Now, is that because they're not leveraging all the data and the information that the data is telling them?
In a lot of cases, and I think there's some new product development gaps that I see pretty frequently, and you've got sales guys and marketing guys who get really excited about a product, and guys and gals, I didn't mean that as exclusionary, but hey, this widget's amazing. We're going to sell 14 billion of them. Well, let's get some traction. Let's get some real data before we start putting a purchase order for 14 billion of something, right? Mm-hmm. Let's see what's happening. But the disconnect, again, there's a poor process there that says the marketing and sales guys think they're going to sell a ton of it. It gets over to purchasing. Well, purchasing starts negotiating with the supplier and saying, well, if I buy 100, they're $1 each. But if I buy 10,000, I can get them for $0.25 each. So it sounds like a better deal. but you're left with inventory stacked to the ceiling in a lot of places that's just collecting dust and costing money.
I want to get to this workshop you've got coming up. But before I do that, for the audience, there's no shortage of consultants in Atlanta, much less in the manufacturing space. But Beau's really been there and done that. So you spent time at Nordson, West Rock, Sir Simmons, the Coca-Cola company, and probably a few others. So a wide variety of operations that you draw your experience from, right?
Yep.
So June 15th, you are hosting a World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship here, and I'm kidding, of course. Lead the people, manage the process. 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Real practical, hands-on. We're going to be talking leadership. We're going to be talking process improvement. Tell us, what are some of the things that when the folks show up and they experience that the Beau Groover effect, what are they taking home?
Well, I'm not sure what the effect will be. Hopefully positive. But yeah, it's the same as the principle of why we formed the company. So there's a lot of lean consulting firms out there that focus on lean and or Six Sigma. And then there's other firms that focus on leadership and culture and coaching and that sort of thing. So our approach, I believe, is different in that we look at both of those items with almost the same amount of weight. We do believe that there's a sequence. You need to get your leadership team correct and effective. And then that allows and enables the leadership team to effectively lead the people. When you don't have engaged people and you have poor processes, what you're left with is trying to manage a human being. And it's just like herding cats, which we've always said, you can't manage another human being, at least not very well. So the workshop is designed to talk about the leadership principles. We spend some time talking about what is a healthy culture, what does trust look like, how do you build it, how do you enhance it? And then on the process side, how do you develop and define if you have a good process? How do you audit a process? How do you know if you have a process and is it working, right? Beyond the metric. Again, if you look too much at the outputs and you ignore the inputs, then you're going to frustrate yourself and the organization because you keep talking about improving performance without helping people know how to do it.
Who should attend this workshop?
It's pretty universal. Obviously, it is geared more towards manufacturing and operations. So if it's a supply chain, if it's part of the supply chain, it's effective. But I think it's also very effective for new supervisors who may not be sure of how much leeway they have, how comfortable and confident they are in doing what they're doing as that new role. But manufacturing and operations would be the primary target market.
So I'll throw you a curveball because we just recently finalized, and I wish I had the date. We're going to do a joint webinar on don't be a lip service leader. So I want to put you on the spot with something. What if you had one thing that comes screaming between your ears about what makes someone a lip service leader and what not to do? What would that be?
I think it's the folks who read a book and they start parroting that book for a few weeks, and then they read another book and they start parroting that book for a few weeks, and then they watch a YouTube video and they start parroting the YouTube video for a few weeks.
That's called the Jason Moss technique, I think. Is that right, Jason?
The Jason Moss.
Squirrel.
So it for me, I think it's important for a leader to recognize, number one, that it starts in the mirror. That if you want to be a leader, then you've got to look yourself in the eyeball and say, all right, this is what I want to do. And the second one, which is, I think, harder for a lot of people, is recognizing leadership is not about you. It's about the team that you're leading. So if you want to effectively lead a group of people, you have to make sure and check your ego and do all of the things that say, I'm here to serve this team that I'm effectively leading. And so the lip service guys or gals, sometimes they say the right things, but they don't walk the walk. They don't do what they say they mean. Their actions don't match their words. And it just becomes, actually, it hurts the trust of the organization when good leadership should inspire and encourage trust in the organization.
Now, how often do you see that kind of incongruity where the firm
has,
a big
word, Lee. Incongruity.
Look, I know you went to Clemson. Come on, put on the Clemson big boy pants there, Scott.
He'll catch up in a minute.
Yeah. So how do you kind of help them kind of manage that gap? If the company's saying one thing and they're behaving in another way, are you seeing that a lot? Is that something they don't notice they're doing? Because I'm sure the employees notice that kind of incongruity.
Yeah, great question, and I've got a great...
Hear that, Scott? Great question. Sometimes big words lead to great questions.
That's right. It was a big word and a great question, all wrapped up into one. So I was working with an organization, and the leader of the organization had a team meeting scheduled, and at the kickoff of the meeting, he was talking about how great things were and how people are the most valuable asset. And he talked for a few more minutes, and then he announced that they were going to be downsizing.
Mm.
And I was part of that organization, and I was kind of dumbfounded because I was in between him and a group of people that were being impacted. And I'm going, wow, people are our most valuable asset, but some of you aren't going to be here tomorrow. And so the lip service leader, or the incongruity of, if people are our most valuable asset, but we're going to get rid of some of you, what does that say about our clarity, our focus? It was just a horrible, horrible situation. It took months to try to recover any healthy culture of that.
Well, looking forward to hearing that story, more on that story and these experiences more on June 15th. And the website to not just find out more information about the workshop, but about the Effective Syndicate is
www.theeffectivesyndicate.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn, Beau Groover.
Awesome. And one last thing there before we move on. Veterans, we're offering free seats for veterans based on capacity, right? We've already had a couple register. It's a big part of helping veterans establish a professional network on the private sector side, as well as giving them some tool sets for finding that next role here in the private sector, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Appreciate what you do there, Beau. Okay. Thank you, Beau Groover, president and founder of the Effective Syndicate, for